Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Angela Mackey Rutledge, and as you may know, I'm the president of the Graduate Law Students Association, and today we are presenting judicial clerkships for LLMs. And I wanted to bring on this presentation because there are plenty of clerkship presentations for the JD students, but none for the LLMs for various reasons. And I think that a judicial clerkship is a really good way to get legal experience. And we'll go into that in detail in a bit. I want to also introduce to you Richard Sue. So Richard was a student at UPenn, an LLM student at UPenn, and I'm going to let him tell us about himself a little bit more. But he is doing a judicial clerkship now with the Honorable Abby Fletman, and he is from China, and he has an F1 visa, and he's had to work his OPT around getting this clerkship. So he can go into more depth there because I'm not on a visa. I don't have those same experiences. In any case, I want to present to you Richard, and I'm going to stop sharing this so that Richard can we can introduce Richard. Hold on. There we go. All right. Richard.
Oh,
Good
hi.
afternoon.
So I guess I can get started right now.
Yeah, well, why don't you tell us a bit about your background and
Right.
then like how did you get where you are now? So right now you're a law clerk with the Honorable Abby Fletman,
Yes.
but you're not from Philadelphia.
Nope.
So how did you get to where you are now?
Well, as for my background, as you have said, I'm from China. I went to law school as an undergrad in Beijing for 4 years. That's where I got an LLB degree. And then, as for my legal experience back home, I had my first internship in my junior year in the fall semester. That was in 2019. And then that was my first internship was working for a law clerk of a local trial court. Oh, that was in Beijing. And my second internship was interning for a religious organization. I researched statutes and other applicable laws applicable to that organization. And my third internship was in the summer of 2020. I interned for just 20 days because of I was heading off to some other thing. I worked under a managing partner at a local regional law firm. There I worked on, there I helped him with managing bankruptcy cases. And my fourth internship was in spring of 2021. I was graduating from law school. I interned in a national full service firm. There I worked on, well, it's really, the cases were really, the assignments were really diverse. I worked on, what were they? Copyright, corporate compliance, trademarks, intellectual property in general, and antitrust and all that. And when I was interning at that law firm, that was my fourth internship in 2021. I was also working as an in-house counsel for a startup company. But let's just say that it doesn't sound as let me say as impressive as it sounds. So
So I gather you had,
yeah.
before you even landed in the US, you had
hmm
pretty significant legal experience as, beyond a student
hmm
level.
Well, I would like to think so.
Okay. And then, and this isn't strictly about judicial clerkships, but how did you pick
Yeah.
UPenn's program? Because there are tons, most of us here are from George Mason, but how did you pick, UPenn?
hmm Yeah, I think it was just I focused I narrowed down which law schools I was going to apply to by mainly by the rankings, US news rankings. Yeah.
Mhm.
And that was because I was thinking about, okay, I may be going home at any point after I graduate, and it's important that I go to a law school where it has good rankings and good alumni network and all that. So that's why I landed on UPenn.
Okay. So then so you did your year of studies at UPenn. Can you
Hmm.
just run down like what courses that you took here or what courses you took that you think helped with getting your clerkship?
Oh, let me see. I think that course, there's a course that every one of you should have all, I think, should have also taken, and that's legal writing. So that really helps because as an LLM student, mm, we don't get a lot of opportunities where we can produce a writing writing assignment of our own that can later be turned into a writing sample when we apply to for clerkships. Yeah, and that's where in a legal writing course, of course, you get started. You get your first ideas about what writing a legal memo is like in America.
Is it much different writing a legal memo here in the States than it is in China?
I think, yeah, because China, most of it is a civil law jurisdiction, and here is a common law jurisdiction. So the methodology and all of that were very different.
Okay. All right. So you did your legal writing course. May I ask, how did
Mhm.
you do in the legal writing course?
Let me see. I think I did all right. Mm, as for how exactly I did it, well,
I mean, well, I guess
well,
what I'm trying to say is if
mm,
someone took a legal writing course and they got a
yeah,
C, all
yeah.
right, it might be harder to get a clerkship, but maybe not. I don't
Mhm.
know.
Mm, I'm not sure if your legal writing course's grade would show exactly would be a letter grade or would be just pass fail and honors.
Right.
Well, my legal writing course was pass fail and honors, so yeah, I
Okay.
got a pass. Yeah.
Okay. So for George Mason,
Mm-hmm.
um, at least for our cohort for the Flex LLM program, we did not have a legal writing requirement. So
Oh, I see.
many of us left without any courses in legal writing. I ended up taking a course in legal writing because I needed to take extra courses in
Mm-hmm.
order to take the DC bar, and I ended up taking 3 legal writing courses. Um, only because they fit in my schedule, not because I was looking to get a legal writing course. It was like, oh, okay, here's a course, it fits in my schedule, I'm going to take it. Oh, it just happens to be writing. But it was the best thing that I could do
Yeah, yeah.
because I ended up, at the end of the semester, I had
Mm-hmm.
writing samples that I could use to get a position.
Yeah. That's the most important thing about legal writing courses, if you ask me about how it helps clerkships.
Okay, so after you finished your courses, so I assume you took all the other normal courses like crim law, torts,
Oh,
evidence,
actually, I
etc.
didn't
Oh, you
because
didn't? Okay.
oh, my program was just for a year, and those doctrinal courses were mostly for 1L JD students. Yeah, and if I wanted to get into those courses, I would have to get on a wait list, which wouldn't always get me. So
So what kind of courses did you take?
ah, let me see. For the doctrinal courses, I took property, evidence, and think the and common law contracts for LLMs. There was a contracts course specially designed for LLMs at Penn. And the other courses I took, most of the other courses I took for interest, like antitrust. There was a criminal law seminar, and that's basically it.
Okay.
Oh, there was a professional responsibility also.
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay. And so there, then it gets to the point where you'll soon be graduating,
Yes.
and you, because you're on, I assume, an F1 visa,
Mm-hmm.
um,
That's
you
correct.
you're looking to get some training. Like you want to use this year, you want to maximize this year that you have to do your training.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how did you, like, how far in advance did you have to plan? So if assuming that you graduated in like last May,
Mm-hmm. That's true.
okay, when did you start looking for a position?
Oh, looking for a position as a clerkship in a court. Actually, I started that pretty late, but obviously, I would definitely advise against planning looking for a position really late. As late, I started in the middle of August, I think.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then how long did it take you to find your current position?
I got my current position on September 27th. Yeah, so it
Okay, that's
took
not bad.
a little more than a month.
So, I know that some clerkships, and this is probably mostly on the federal level, they
Hmm.
have quite a long lead time. Like sometimes they want you to apply like a year in advance.
Yes,
Um,
that's
but
true.
I think maybe some of the state city clerkships are a little bit easier in that there's not as much of a lead time. It has to do with I guess more about the availability, and there seems to be a little more availability for the state clerkships than the federal ones.
Yeah, that is very true because I think federal. Let me see. Yeah, federal clerkships are definitely the most sought after, and state clerkships, on the other hand, are not so much in demand. And for LLMs in particular, I would say that because most LLMs don't have a US citizenship, mm, if you want to get a clerkship in a federal court, if you want to clerk for a federal judge, you should know that you won't get paid if you work for a judge located in the continental US.
I did not know that. Wow.
Well, that is true though. Yeah.
Okay.
And mhm,
And wait, what, the people who are American, what do they get paid? I thought it was like 70,000 or something for federal
uh
clerkships.
oh, you mean like the salary for federal
Yeah.
clerkships? Oh, that I don't know. I guess 70,000 sounds plausible. Yeah. Maybe it's just that Pennsylvania is so broke that I get paid much less.
Me too.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately. Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. So, how did you find out? Okay, so
Mm,
let me explain how I found various clerkships. Um,
yes.
so for different clerkships, I did a lot of searching on my own. Now, to
Hmm.
start off with, a lot of schools have a database of clerkships available.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and if you're a JD student at our school, not only is there a database of clerkships available, and these are mostly federal clerkships, there's a whole network of people that you need to reach out to. And the process of applying, because for the federal ones, you need to apply like a year in advance.
Yeah, yeah.
All your application materials have to be approved by the Office of Career Services. I mean, it's a very planned out, it's very strategic, and they don't have that in place for LLMs. But if you still wanted a clerkship as an LLM, you can
Hmm.
go to Oscar, which is the federal clerkship database, and you can apply online.
Yeah.
But as a heads up,
Hmm.
when you're filling in the materials for Oscar, Oscar's set up for JDs. It's not set up for LLM. So if you try to put in your LLM degree, it doesn't quite work. You sort of have to say I have a JD, the drop down menu say I have a JD, and then explain in the comments I don't have a JD, but there's no option for LLMs, and I did my try to,
Yeah.
like, you have to sort of give a little bit of your backstory.
Yeah. Get around it. Yeah.
Yeah. So then for Pennsylvania, there's a website that the PA court's website that just lists all of the I don't know, I shouldn't say all, it lists a number of clerkships available, and
Yeah.
positions that are not clerkships as well but have to do with the courts. Maryland has a similar, something similar. New York has something similar, but New York has more than one. There's more than one research to work or resource for the New York courts.
Really?
Um, yeah, New York has a very large court system, so I don't
Does.
think there's just one web page. I think there are. Um, I think you need to go to each court's website. It would be great if it was all there, but I think from my cursory research, and I didn't want to clerk in New York, so I haven't checked
Hmm.
into it much, but there seemed to be more than one resource to get to apply for a judicial clerkship in New York. And then Virginia, I don't remember Virginia. I believe there's a website for Virginia as well. So I went on the well, LinkedIn is the first place I checked, and I saw
Hmm.
that for this my current position that it was listed on LinkedIn, and I
Ah.
applied, and I'd forgotten that I applied for it. But normally you need to go to the website. So the first judicial district where we work, they have their own website for jobs, and the jobs on the first judicial district website aren't the same jobs that are on the PA court's website. So
Mm.
for Pennsylvania, you
Hmm.
need to check um, both the specific judicial district and the Pennsylvania state one. And I'm saying that because if there's someone here who is
Hmm.
looking for a judicial clerkship in a specific state, they, you know, they might have to check more than one place for these judicial clerkships. So it might be there's a state page, but they might have to go to the actual judiciary website and see what's listed.
Ooh.
Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Pennsylvania is not. Pennsylvania doesn't streamline its clerkship applications process very
Yeah.
much. Yeah.
And what I have found that for each judge, there's slightly different procedures to apply.
Hmm.
Whereas
Really?
the federal one for Oscar, they seem to, even though they vary, they seem to have the same, or not the same. They sort of try to standardize it so that you're applying with a resume, a cover letter, your writing samples, and your transcripts.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What
Very
I
true.
see varies is the number of recommendations you need. Some places they want one, some places they want three. I applied
Hmm.
for one clerkship, they wanted four recommendations.
Oh no.
So yeah, so it can it can vary wildly.
Hmm. It
So
does.
where did you find out about your position?
Oh, as for my position, well, it was pretty much by chance. So I made an appointment to talk with a career counselor in my law school, and so she's in charge of advising students on um, clerkships. And when we were talking about where I could apply, um, I so the career counselor, she told me that, oh, do you know this actually, there's a judge in Philadelphia who is also a Penn Law alum, and she's looking for a clerk right now. And I looked it up, um, and there was it. So I think she sent me, yeah, she did send me the job posting for that position, and I only later found out that I could have found it on my law school's Simplicity, but it wasn't available on the website of the Unified Judicial System of Pennsylvania. Well, that is the statewide court system of Pennsylvania. It's true what you said that Pennsylvania doesn't list all the available clerkships um, on its statewide website. I think New York does, and New Jersey does that also. Yeah.
Right. And I also want to emphasize that
Hmm.
simplicity is different depending on what school you go to. So, what the jobs that you see available on simplicity aren't the same jobs that I see on
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
simplicity.
I would. That sounds very true. Yeah.
Okay. So, you applied. What did you have to do to apply? Like,
Mhm.
how did you interview? What did you submit? Like, what was the application process like?
I think for my current position, the application process was pretty simple because my judge was looking for a clerk to fill my position fast because her previous law clerk was leaving, and she needed somebody to start on who could start by October the 3rd.
Right.
So I just emailed her and emailed her with my, I think, resume, cover letter, writing sample, and maybe there was a transcript, but that was pretty much it. I didn't have to email her any recommendation letter or anything. Yeah,
That's
something this.
probably that. So that's the pen advantage.
Yeah, I would guess so. I would guess so.
That, well, two things. She went to Penn, so she knows,
Yeah.
she knows, the caliber of students coming out of Penn, but it's also that Penn is ranked high enough that you can probably, pick any number of students from Penn and not need a letter of recommendation. Whereas George Mason, we're like ranked number 30.
Oh,
So,
well,
which
still pretty
isn't
good.
bad in the whole scheme of things because it's still
Hmm.
like top 50.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
um, uh, Penn is probably in the top 10, I think.
yeah.
Is
It is.
correct? Right. So top 10, top 30, there's a little bit of a difference there. I had three recommendations.
Hmm.
Um, okay. So what what was the interview process like?
Oh, um, so that was in person. I went to Philadelphia City Hall into my judge's chambers for that interview, and that took place. That took us, I think, 1 hour, about 1 hour and a half. Yeah, it started
Okay.
around three. Oh, just a little over an hour. It started a little after 3:30, and it ended shortly before 5 because my judge said that um, she needed to get something done before she leave for the day. And the process was mostly about the interview was mostly about, well, for my judge specifically, mm, she was not asking me questions as much as she was explaining to me what my job was. But I would definitely imagine that some other judges would focus more on the questioning part instead of on the explanation part.
That's really
And
interesting because I
yeah.
interviewed with her too, but she was like
Hmm.
a second interview.
Oh,
And so it was because our role, like I'm with the senior, just to explain, Richard and I, we work together. We share an office.
yeah, we actually do.
So Richard is Judge Fletman's law clerk, and I'm a law clerk for senior judges. So I don't clerk for one judge. I clerk for several judges, and my
Hmm.
clerkship is what's called a career clerkship,
Oh,
which is like I have no sort of end date. It's just I clerk until I don't want to clerk anymore,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
until they want to get rid of me. Whereas a traditional judicial clerkship really lasts 1 or 2 years or some, combination, something in between that. So for Richard, he knows that he's only going to be there for a certain period of time,
Yeah,
I
that's
believe,
true.
right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so Judge Fletman, when she interviewed me, she wanted me to make sure that I understood that the position I had was not going to end after 1 year
Yeah, yeah.
or 2 years, that it was just going on
Indefinitely.
in perpetuity. But I found her nice, but I felt that in the interview she didn't like me. I was just like, I'm not getting this job.
Really, really. Oh,
Yeah,
oh.
I walked away thinking, well, I gave it my best. So,
Hmm.
but she had a poker face. Uh, she was very, I don't know. Uh,
Professional, you may say.
yes. Oh, we have a question here.
Oh yeah. Let's see.
Pranav. Is
Uh,
it Pranav or Pranav?
it's Pranav.
Pranav. Hi, Pranav.
Hi. Hi. It's nice meeting you all. I just had a doubt regarding like the writing sample, and like what did you include? Was it a research article or like something specifically for the clerkship, or yeah, I just wanted to know. And when you were taking the interview, was that a factor that they were considering, that you were an F1 student? Um, uh, because like most of the clerkships that I've applied to, they require citizenship. And
Oh,
so can you tell me more about the process so I can
yeah.
understand better?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess I can answer that, Angela, if you don't mind. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, Pranav, nice meeting you as well. And as for the writing sample and which kind of writing sample is preferable for applying to clerkships, I would say a legal memo that you have written from a previous job or course that you have taken would be the best. And usually should take 10 to 15 pages, should be the original unedited work of yourself. And if it has been edited, if you want to submit an edited memo as your writing sample, it would be, and if that's permissible, you would want to, I think for ethical reasons, you would want to explain briefly the extent to which it has been edited, the extent to which you have received feedback, comments from that. Yeah. And mhm. And you were also talking about
Uh,
citizenship. Yeah.
like when you approach someone like a judge or like for a clerkship, do they
Yes.
really consider the citizenship as a factor when they're trying to recruit? Would you bring it up early on, or like maybe like talk about the value
Mm-hmm.
you have um, as a prospective clerk, or like
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. So like how did you approach the judge when you were when it was the interview?
Oh, so my job posting did not require US citizenship. That was one nice thing. It did come up in our interview, and that did not come up there early, and I did not bring it up early on. I think you probably won't do well if you actually choose to bring the issue of your citizenship early on in the interview. Yeah, it would be
Okay.
best if you wait until, for example, either when your judge indicates asks you a question or says something that would make you answer about your citizenship, or wait until you get the job offer, and then you explain to your judge your citizenship. If it actually, for example, I would say only if your job doesn't if your job posting doesn't require expressly that you have to be a US citizen, or that you have to have a JD degree, uh, you can wait until you get the job offer, and you explain it only if it actually would affect how long you can work for the judge. So for me, I'm on my OPT, and because I didn't start my clerkship on the same day my OPT started, I cannot clerk for my judge for an entire year. But it is usually expected that clerks would work for judges for at least a year. Yeah, 1 year commitment is the norm. And so during my interview, when my judge asked me about, okay, how long can I work for her? I explained to her my OPT status and all that, and she was actually very supportive of that. Yeah.
Okay.
All right,
Mm-hmm.
I just want to add to that, in that I interviewed with several judges. So I've applied for several clerkships. And before I had this clerkship, I was doing a part-time clerkship. And I got the part-time clerkship through interviewing with two different other judges. So what I found is that I always have to explain why I don't have a JD. And when I explain why I don't have a JD, it brings up the fact that I have an international education. So the interviewers know from the start that I'm international. I have dual citizenship. I'm both American and British. So I have to explain why part of my resume is like jobs all in another country or several other countries. Like they want the story to make sense. They want to like, why are you here? Like, why were you there? So in explaining that and explaining that I've gone the LLM route and in explaining that I have a, you know, I don't have a JD, the citizenship thing came up. But because I'm a citizen, it didn't go down any sort of negative path, I don't think. And I don't know that it would have anyhow, but just to let you know, like when you're explaining your education, they might make assumptions that you are foreign because if your resume says like your first 5 jobs have been in,
Yeah.
you know, in India or Pakistan or
Yeah.
Egypt or whatever, then you need to explain that. But I would also say for the writing samples, the the writing samples I used were from the classes I took at George Mason. So I took pretrial practice, and which is a summer course and it's online, and I took e-discovery, which is a summer class also online, and so from those classes I had a couple motions and a couple memos. So I had a motion to dismiss, I had a motion to compel, I had a memo. I had like 5 different things. I also, because this is like crazy and it's like horrible and like, I don't even know how to explain it. I have a relative who is crazy, like certifiably crazy.
Oh no.
And it's gotten so bad that it's gone legal. And been handling my own legal paperwork. And so because of this relative and having to handle this legal paperwork, I've had to submit motions to a different court out of
Oh.
state. It's yeah, I'll go into it with you at some point, Richard.
Yeah, I'd
But
love to do that.
it's all stuff I have to declare to the state bar. So it's annoying and a little bit embarrassing, but it's like I've been a victim in this situation. Anyhow, but as like horrible as this process has been, it's
Hmm.
one helped me with as horrible as, just so you have an idea, this this, and I'm trying not to get too much into my business, but this crazy relative believes I'm stalking her. I am not.
Oh no.
I'm not, because one, as a law student, that would be
Hmm.
like not something that would be cool, and two,
Hmm.
like everything you have to declare to the bar,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
I'm not going to do anything to jeopardize my legal career. But in having to deal with this and having to deal with the legal paperwork, I've been able to like have a quick lesson on civil procedure in another state, albeit.
Mm.
Um, but I've also had to write motions to the judge, like a motion to continue, a motion to do the hearing over Zoom, like motion to dismiss. And I've had to write enough motions that I'm starting to get like a little, you know, I'm starting to be like pretty okay at it. So, um, you know, some of those motions I've taken and I've redacted and changed names and stuff,
Hmm.
changed situations to as part of my own writing sample. So, but I do try not to admit like, yes, this is my own case. Like, but it's really, so the writing samples, I would say it's stuff you get from class. And one writing sample I think that probably could work, if you ever done an MPT for the bar or practicing for the bar, um, if you've had to write a memo, like the samples would be sort of be like the memo that you write for the MPTs. I would think. So
Hmm.
um when you're submitting your writing, I submitted maybe 5 different things. I picked my 5 best.
Ooh,
And
that's a lot.
yeah, so when I submit it, I have an application pack and I always keep my pack updated. So I've got a cover letter, I've got a resume, I've got 3 letters of recommendation, I've got a pack of all my achievements. So I've been over the year, I've had I've won several awards and have been featured in various things and I've written
Ooh, that's
articles.
nice.
Yeah, I got to write an article for Above the Law, and I put all of that together and submit it. So this pack is like 30 pages when you include all the writing samples and the achievements and the recommendations and the transcripts. Now, when they see your transcripts, they're going to know you're an LLM student because you only have a certain amount of courses on there.
Yeah, yeah.
So you've got, and Judge Fletman said to me,
Mm-hmm.
you only have a year of US law experience. And I'm like, well, yeah. And then she's like, well, but how are you going to know how to write a motion to dismiss? Like, how are you going to know this? And I'm like, well, I have to know it for the bar exam. And I think that sort of alleviated
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
the fears that she had. But um, so you can't get out of the interview without it being known that you're international. You can get into it without them really totally realizing you're international, but you can't get out of it especially if you're going into your legal education. And it was I felt that because I had to justify my LLM to Judge Fletman and other judges to say, although I've only had a year of US legal experience,
Mm-hmm.
I went to school in a common law country, and I've had this other experience. I worked in immigration law. I did this. So you really want to sort of bring out the best that you can in the interview. And I think, for me, I have to bring up the LLM international stuff early on just so I can tackle it. Otherwise, like my story doesn't make sense if I skip over the fact that I have an LLM or got my LLB overseas. I'm sorry,
Yeah, so
that was a very long-winded
it's okay. It's
explanation.
okay.
All
Um,
right. So you interviewed for your position, and
Mm-hmm.
then once you interviewed for it, um what came next?
Came next. Oh, I had only one round for the interview of my job. So it was so after that interview, I waited for about a week, and then HR called me and told me that I got the job.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
excellent.
yeah, yeah. It was lucky.
All right. So I've put together a little slideshow.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go through it. I'm not going to speak through everyone and every slide, and some of it is stuff we've already talked about, but this will give you guys an idea of sort of what the judicial clerkships are about. Because I know that we talked about getting it, but
Mm-hmm.
the slideshow will go over sort of like what do we actually do in the clerkship? Because I didn't really understand what clerks did. I mean, I understood at the point I was interviewing,
Mm-hmm.
but before, like on TV, when I would hear about someone clerked for Sotomayor, someone clerking I didn't understand what clerking meant. So we'll get into that here. All right, I'm going to share my screen. All right, let me unspotlight you, Richard.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and share screen. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Um, oh my gosh, I don't know. Can you still see my screen?
Yeah, I can still see it. I think you clicked on slideshow, but it hasn't loaded.
Oh, okay. Hold on. I don't think that was. All right, I'm just gonna leave it on this view here.
Hmm.
Um,
looks all right.
Yep. Okay. All right. So, what is a clerkship? It is a prestigious position, although sometimes I don't feel that that it's prestigious.
Yeah, it could be strange for us to say, oh, it's a prestigious position, like we're bragging.
Yeah. That typically lasts for a term of 1 to 2 years, though some can be longer. A judicial clerk assists a judge by researching the law and drafting memoranda or legal opinions. Judges rely a great deal on the knowledge and legal skills of their judicial clerks. Clerks have significant responsibility and excellent opportunity to learn. So, I mean, I see my clerkship more as a learning opportunity than anything else. A learning opportunity where you actually get paid, because we're learning the law in a very different way than you learn it from law school. And I think the skills that I use the most are like reading and writing, being able to summarize things that are complex into smaller bite-sized chunks. Um, so in this, and I found there are lots of presentations online about judicial clerkships, and I've tried to find the best ones and pull text from it. So I want to admit, I haven't written some of these slides, but I have taken the text and I just want to explain more about it. So it says it lasts 1 to 2 years. My clerkship will go on forever, as long as I want to work there or as long as they want to employ me. There's some clerkships that are 1 to 2 years. Some are shorter than a year. Some will last 6 months. Clerkships typically start after the round of after the bar exam. So you'll find that when you're applying for a clerkship, clerkships start their sessions from August or September. For Richard, it was October. And then they go on. But for the clerkship I had, it was when it was available. And with Pennsylvania, there are other clerkships that do not adhere to a schedule where things start in the fall and end in the summer. Oh, I also want to add that with the clerkships, you'll find that the higher the clerkship, the more prestigious it is. So clerking for the Supreme Court is like the top, the best you can do in
Yeah,
terms of
absolutely.
clerking. And not to say that clerking where we are or even someplace further down the line is not as good, but it's what's most sought after are the federal clerkships, the Supreme Court clerkships and the federal clerkships. But understand that if you're going for a Supreme Court clerkship, that's not your first clerkship. There's no one who's clerking for the Supreme Court who's never clerked before. If you're clerking for the Supreme Court, you've been a clerk somewhere else. So in order to get a Supreme Court clerkship, like you need a stepping stone clerkship before you get there. So why should you be a judicial clerk? So it gives you an opportunity to, at the beginning of your career, it gives you insight into the judge's perspective that you wouldn't obtain as an attorney. You'll be able to improve your legal analysis, research, and writing skills without the pressure of billable hours. You will learn substantive and procedural law, and you will be mentored by a judge. And also you get to see things that go on in the courtroom. So I sat in on a jury selection yesterday, which I thought was really interesting because I'd never done that before. Why should I apply to be a judicial law clerk? You'll learn lawyering skills, networking, the prestige of the position. I don't want to get too caught up in prestige, because some places are more coveted than others, but it's all good experience for your resume, especially if you're looking for US experience. It looks good on your resume. And I'm sure Richard would agree that having this experience on his resume is going to significantly help him, because I'm guessing, Richard, you want to stay in the US and try to get another position in the US.
That is true.
Okay. And you can live somewhere. New judges employ law clerks in all 50 states and territories. Yeah, so I applied a while ago for a clerkship in American Samoa. And I thought, well, in the South Pacific, if I thought if I'm going to clerk, I might as well be someplace warm and nice
Something nice. Yeah.
and not not in City Hall in Philadelphia.
Mhm.
So there is, I believe there is a clerkship for any type of situation. All right. But you'd have to get your head out of wanting to get a federal clerkship. The issue that students at George Mason will have is that you're going for the DC bar. And if you want to clerk in DC, there are only like two courts you can really go to. They're both federal courts, and federal courts are highly sought after. And as an LLM, it is going to be extremely difficult to get into the DC courts. Not impossible, just difficult. You will need some connections. All right, so clerking advantages sets you up for success as a legal career, makes you, it says better or lawyer. This is wrong, so wrong. Better lawyer.
That's okay.
It opens career doors, provides mentorship, and builds legal careers. I think it's fun. Better or lawyer. Such a good lawyer that you can't speak English properly, apparently. All right, so challenges. This is a slide I did write myself. Challenges for international LLM students. So many federal clerkships require US citizenship. So the alternative path would be to go for a state clerkship. So, and we'll show the breakdown of the sort of courts you can work for the states. Two, there's a long lead time for recruiting for some clerkships. These will be the federal clerkships, which you need to apply for a year or two in advance. Now, if your LLM program is only a year, that would mean that you need to apply for your clerkship before you've even started your LLM program, which is problematic because you don't have the US experience, you don't have the transcripts, there's so much that you don't have. So international LLMs on F1 visa need to arrange the clerkship in conjunction with their OPT. And then in order to apply for a clerkship, you need writing samples. Thus, you need to have taken a class in writing in order to have plenty of available samples. And law schools don't promote clerkships as a viable option to LLMs. So at George Mason, getting a federal clerkship is highly coveted, and the law school will brag about the amount of JDs who have clerkships. The law school will tear the arm off of an LLM student who takes a clerkship away from a JD. So,
Oh no.
yeah, so there's a big push from a JD perspective, but also their program is 3 years long. So they're able to apply, you can apply after your first year when you have your L1 grades. And then, get a clerkship for, ready for when you graduate. So I'm saying that as an LLM student, you should focus on the state internships, and they even have municipal internships for some of the lower courts. Am I a viable clerkship candidate? So judges consider your law school, your work experience. If you've worked on a journal as an LLM student, it's unlikely that we've have any sort of journal experience unless you've done write-on. They don't really push write-on too much for LLM students, but I think write-on, it comes like right after finals, and it's really like, as an LLM student, I was pretty busy. I think if I were a 3-year JD student, I could pace myself out. But when you're doing your LLM, you pack in a lot in that year, and it's very difficult to like add on any sort of extracurricular activities. They consider your performance in law school, letters of recommendation, and that last one should say geographic ties. I don't know why it says geographic 6ES. Toes. All right. Okay. Can you afford it? The pay for law clerks varies by location. I don't know why it's taking out all the T and I's. State salaries vary. Many law firms provide clerkship bonuses if you begin, I should say after, I didn't proofread this, after a clerkship. And clerkships may apply for public service loan forgiveness. So if you're a US citizen and you've taken out any student loans, you can use your clerkships towards your public service loan forgiveness. So when you're in that program, after 120 monthly payments, which is like 10 years, then all your debt is forgiven. And your years working for as a clerk can count towards that 120 payments. Okay. Oh, sorry. I just wanted to talk about pay here. Like when I was doing my part-time clerkship, I was getting paid, it was like $22 per hour or something like that, or 20 point something an hour. I think it's 22 if you pass the bar. But it was only 20. So it wasn't like, it was like, better than working at McDonald's, but not by much. But that being said, the conditions you work in are actually pretty good. And the part-time clerkship, I had my own office. It was really nice. People were super sweet. The work wasn't particularly hard. It was, from an academic standpoint, it could be difficult doing some of the research, but it wasn't like you were doing hard physical labor. What do you need to apply? Typically cover letter, resume, law school transcripts, 3 letters of recommendation. But as Richard said, he didn't need the letters of recommendation. So check when you're applying how many letters of recommendation. Even if they say you need 1, I always submit 3. I always keep everything together. So every place I apply will get the same package, except the cover letter will change. I also suggest writing out the cover letter. Look up the judge before you apply, so you know what the judge is about. See if you can, agree with their viewpoints. Because if there's a judge who, if you're conservative and you go with a liberal judge and you don't think your viewpoints will align, it might not work out. Okay. There was something else I wanted to mention. I can't remember. Okay, so how can LLMs leverage judicial clerkships? All right, so many clerkships do not require citizenship. Clerking is going to give you valuable US experience upon your resume. There are all kinds of clerkships, so you should be able to find one that fits your schedule. There's some part-time clerkships available. And the thing with part-time clerkships is that they're not always advertised. And sometimes clerkships themselves aren't advertised. Sometimes, like, this requires digging. And even when things are listed online, sometimes there are positions that exist that aren't listed, and you just need to make further inquiries. And then Pennsylvania actually has a shortage of law clerks. So a shortage, that means there are not enough law clerks in Pennsylvania. I don't know about the other states, but if you want a clerk, Pennsylvania is a good place to come, because there's a shortage here. Although just because there's a shortage doesn't mean that in other industries, when there's a shortage of people, they pay you more. Here, no, the pay stays the same whether there's a shortage or not. There is a difference in pay if you have passed the Pennsylvania bar or if you have not. And I imagine it's the same in other states. So if you go for like the Maryland bar or the Virginia bar, you probably get paid more as someone who's passed the bar than someone who hasn't passed the bar in that state, that is. There are some clerkships that absolutely require bar passage, and then there's some that don't. The ones that require bar passage are probably going to be the ones where you're working at the appellate level. All right, so what kinds of clerkships are out there? So you have the Supreme Court. This is the highly coveted one. Federal appellate courts, also highly coveted. Federal district courts, also highly coveted. And it goes down slightly the more you go down this list. State Supreme Court, state appellate court, state trial court. And then there's even under the state trial courts, there are some local courts. So you might have like a traffic court or some sort of family court underneath here. So I believe I'm at the state court level, I think. I'm not sure.
Well, we are, yeah,
Yeah.
clerking for a state trial court. That is true.
Okay, so yeah, we're at the state trial court.
Mhm.
And even so you can apply to all these different courts, but what I would say is it's going to get more competitive the more you go towards the Supreme Court. And there's there are going to be some positions that they're going to require you to have another clerkship before you get to that one. So I know like for the state Supreme Courts, they don't want that to be your first clerkship. They want you to have clerked someplace else before you get to this for Pennsylvania. I don't know about the other states. All right, so what kind of clerkships are in Pennsylvania? So we have our minor courts, our courts of common pleas. This is where I am. We have the Commonwealth Court, which is like for dealing with matters like when you sue like a municipality or the state, the Superior Court, and then the Supreme Court. So right here, these are like appellate courts here, and then you've got the Supreme Court. For Virginia, you've got the circuit courts. So these are all the courts that you could apply for in Virginia. And it might mean that you might need to go to the website for each of these courts to see the available positions, because they're not all just listed easily for you to get. And for Maryland, so they've got a district court and an orphans court, interestingly enough. The circuit court, Court of Appeals, Supreme Court. And then DC only has a Court of Appeals and a Superior Court. The issue with this, it's very hard to get into both of those courts. Not impossible as an LLM, but very difficult. Very competitive. And then New York, this is hard to see. Let me open this up a little bit. Okay, so New York has a lot of courts here. If you wanted to clerk in New York, and clerking in New York is going to be a little bit difficult because one, New York City is very expensive, but there are courts outside of New York City where you can apply. And I would say try outside of New York City, but where your connections are going to be, or, if you're trying to go for a big law career, you probably want New York City. But there are lots of different courts here. Each of these courts, has several judges. Each of those judges have several law clerks. So there are definitely positions out there. All right, so that is the end of my presentation there. Are there any other questions?
I would imagine there would be many.
All right.
I'm impressed. I'm impressed, and I came to listen, obviously, and learn a little more. And I've been digging a little bit into this and see if it's something that I'd be interested in. But yeah, not for me. It's a lot of lone time in the research world. I like the more in-house counsel positions. So more interactions, you know what I mean, more contracts, stuff like that. But I guess for like a volunteer position for myself, I will do it just to get the background and then take it.
And I think, the positions themselves, obviously need to be suited towards your personality. So I'm someone that I like doing research, and I like I like doing research and I like writing. But it does sort of feel like I'm always writing a report. Like there's always something to be written. There's always it doesn't, as soon as you finish something, like crime and civil suits, they don't stop. They just keep coming. So you're always working on something. But and I'm a career changer from IT. It's very different from that. So I don't have as much interaction with people. So I mean, I interact with, you know, the judges, obviously, but not necessarily on a daily basis. I mean, I rarely see, like right now, although I work, they said I'll be working for 4 judges. I've only seen the judge that I've worked for like twice out of a month. I've only been there a month. um, and so he'll send me some emails, but they're very terse. So um, I don't have a lot of contact with my judge, but I do have mentorship like with other lawyers there. And there are other law clerks there who have passed the bar and are fully lawyers and could work out in private practice, but choose to work as a law clerk.
Exactly, right? So that's what I was thinking. So I mean, you really have to like research and case reading. We all have to do it because we want to be attorneys. Obviously, we have to know how to do that. But like for myself and to do that 100% all the time, yeah, no, that 10%, yeah, maybe.
Well, I would say it's probably like 80% of your time if you are a personal law clerk of a trial judge, state trial judge. So my experience of with the clerking for my judge has 2 phases. First, during the first phase, I was her personal law clerk. Then I moved upstairs and became a law clerk working on her mass tort dockets. So when I was her personal law clerk, I would basically see her at least once every day. Yeah, because she would come out of her chambers, sign an order, and put it into place for us to bring upstairs. And usually we would talk basically every day, like how we're going with our caseload and what issues need to be sorted out and what questions we had that we don't know how to, like which legal issues we're not really sure of and want to check with her and all that.
Interesting.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, I've only been there like it'll be a month next week. So I work on lots of motions. I've worked on so I'm in the civil division, and so I've worked on a few car accidents. So I'm doing torts. I really like torts. And there's some property stuff. I mean, I don't like the property stuff, honestly.
Me neither.
The torts stuff, it tends to be like so far I've had a couple car accidents, and I've had someone who was beaten by the police and he's suing the city. So it's interesting stuff. I'm learning a lot about Pennsylvania law. One hesitancy I have is that I can't get barred in Pennsylvania, or not easily. I mean, it will be I essentially have to go to law school all over again, or I don't know. I have to move a few mountains, which is difficult because now I'm getting old and I'm tired of moving these mountains. But I'm learning a lot about the intricacies of Pennsylvania law. And it would really benefit me if I were barred in Pennsylvania, because then I could use this knowledge. And the lawyers that I'm meeting, like, you know, the lawyer I met, you know, 2 lawyers yesterday that were doing the jury selection. And I thought, oh, this could be a good like networking opportunity. But the thing is, you don't want to appear like you are, you can't appear that you're favoring either side. But I'd like to take note of like who are the attorneys that are coming into the court, and you know, be able to like at some point down the road, I want to say down the road, like at a point where I'm not working for the courts anymore, be able to network with them. But I don't know if that's going to be wasted if I am not going to be able to be barred in PA. So if you're doing a judicial clerkship, consider where you're going to be barred and where the clerkship will be. If I could have gotten a clerkship in DC, I definitely would have done that over what I'm doing now, just because I would be establishing more contacts in the place where I am likely to be barred if I ever pass the bar exam.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, and it makes sense, especially for us not to younger chicks, that we don't want to feel like it's wasted time, except that it's not wasted time, because although the law is different, the process is exactly the same.
Yeah.
So the only difference is, you have to find the different laws of different states, but the process never changes from state to state in the United States. So that's what's important. And, you took civil procedure, that's basically true everywhere. And all you have to do is pick up a book of civil procedure in another state and dust it off.
Yeah. So you do, I mean, every day I'm learning something, so it's been good. And there are other law clerk positions out there that aren't judicial ones, but in terms of judicial, I think that the law school should really take a view of putting it forward that this is an option available for students. And I feel like there's some students that didn't know it was available, because I didn't realize it was available until I started digging myself.
Thank you for that, Angela. I'm pretty sure that the other LLMs that are going to be listening to this, because I sent out a message to my classmates, I'm pretty sure they're going to appreciate this, because some of them actually are interested in stuff like this, and they probably did not know this. So I'm sure they're going to take your advice.
Yeah. All right. Well, unless there are any other questions.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Angela, for the event, and thank you, Richard, for the.
Richard,
my
I
pleasure.
really appreciate you taking time out of your Saturday to, because we spend Monday through Friday together, and now we're together on Saturday.
Yep, seeing you again. Yeah, but let me see. Before we end this Zoom meeting, I did want to share a few things from from two classmates, two Penn LLMs who I reached out to. Yeah, because I wanted to see if they could also chime in and join the Zoom meeting. Unfortunately, they could not. But so one of them has told me that I can share her email address for any attendee of this meeting who wanna meet with her directly and talk about clerking in the US. And the other basically has a brief message for LLMs who are interested in clerkships. Well, in view of what I've learned about the career office of George Mason Law School, this message may not be that helpful, but it's basically that really leverage your career office to the maximum, however unhelpful they may have been. And also, let me see what else they're saying. Yeah. Also, don't let yourself get affected by what other students are doing and are planning with their careers, and just I think basically the message is that don't feel self-conscious or about anything about your career choices. And also, I just want to put in to the chat what
court is
LLM's
she with?
email. Say what?
What court is she with?
She's clerking in Connecticut, and she will be clerking for the commercial division of the New York Supreme Court this August.
Nice.
Yeah, it is. Let me see. I'll just get her email into the chat, into our meeting room chat.
So I guess, wait, she's in Connecticut and clerking for New York?
No, she's in Connecticut and clerking for a Connecticut court.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Did she move there for this position?
Yeah, I think she did. Okay, just a minute.
Okay, no worries. Okay, double checking. All right. I just put her email address in the chat box, and you can see it now. All right, that's brilliant. Thank you so much, Richard. I totally appreciate it. Your
you're welcome.
insights have been really, really helpful.
I hope so.
All right. Thanks, everyone. And tune in next month where we go over bar exam stuff. We're doing a what worked and what didn't work for the bar study that we did last year or this year. All right. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.